Bruce Feldman is with us from theathletic.com. That's where you can read his piece that went up to begin the week, his NFL Draft Confidential, talking to more than a dozen NFL coaches about prospects heading into the draft. You have quotes on Hendon Hooker. What has stood out to you hearing NFL coaches evaluate Hinden at the quarterback position, coming off the knee injury and putting up the numbers and performing the way he did for Tennessee the last 2 years?
There's a lot of people who like him. They're intrigued by him. His arm is good. They liked him in their interviews and meetings with him. Not just his grasp on what they did at Tennessee, but even when they went back to the Virginia Tech stuff, why they called certain things and what they did. They thought he was impressive in that regard, showed some pocket presence. They like his arm and his athleticism. As you said, I mean, he's coming off an injury. One of the coaches I talked to this week said in some ways it sucks to say it like this, but him getting hurt might actually help him in the long run because it gives him kind of a de facto redshirt year to sit back and really transition, because as terrific as the Tennessee offense was, it is hard for NFL coaches to see somehow the translation of some of the routes and different things as it relates to the NFL. So 2023, as he heals up, he learns. Maybe 2024, he's competing with the number 2, and then 2025, you're hoping he's ready to take over the job. I think from all the stuff I've heard, there are people who really think he can be a good NFL quarterback. The question is going to be, once you get past number 20, how many of those teams really need quarterbacks? There's a few that might. You start getting into, like, the Bengals are not going to be in the market for a quarterback anytime soon, the Chiefs, the Bills. And so we'll see who's available for him. But I think he's a legit guy, and there's people who really are fascinated by what they think he can become.
What stood out to you, Bruce, about what some of the scouts and coaches, what they've said about some of the other players outside of Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, Darnell Wright, Byron Young, Jalen Hyatt, Tillman, guys like that?
Darnell Wright is probably the one that gets people the most excited. Like all the guys I talked to, this isn't a great class for O-linemen, but, they really like him as a right tackle. He's nasty. He's physical. He looked good when he got matched up against Will Anderson from Alabama. He might be, in terms of just, hey, he's a right tackle, we're going to plug him in. Some of these other guys who are maybe ranked a little above him as offensive linemen, I'm not sure they're ready to go in and play one position the way he is. Like, people like Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. He has good feet, and his technique is really good. But there's questions about, like, is his length ideal to be an offensive tackle? Do you try him at right tackle, and then he goes, you can slide him into guard? Paris Johnson's a really good athlete from Ohio State, but he doesn't have kind of the power of some of the guys last year who were the top-end guys and maybe not as good in the run game, so maybe he's a bit away. Broderick Jones from Georgia, people love his potential, but he hasn't played that much football, and there's some inconsistency. Whereas Darnell Wright, you look at what he did last year, I would expect him to go somewhere in the first round just because people are like, okay, that's a right tackle. He can go in, and he's going to be physical, and he's going to hold up.
Bruce Feldman is with us, The Athletic. What sense do you get in how Tennessee has changed the program in the last couple of years from what you hear NFL coaches or other college coaches say about Tennessee since Josh Heupel's taken over the program?
Well, the NFL piece is a little different. For the moment, I would put that to the side. I know when we're talking draft, but just the idea that in a year, and I know it's more than a year since he's been there, but in a year, Tennessee has gotten out of the ditch. And Tennessee was in, and you guys know that, and your audience knows this painfully well. I mean, it was brutal, like I don't want to call it a roller coaster that the fan base was on. Everything from Lane to the dreadful Derek Dooley era to Butch up and down, and then, they buy into Jeremy Pruitt, and that ends really bad. And then last year, they get it cranked up. Obviously, they win some of those huge games. And it's the best year that they've had since 2001. And I feel like that changes how recruits look at the place. I just think that it's like the dark cloud is lifted, right? And so just the idea. And we'll see what happens if Joe Milton looks as good as he did at the end. I mean, you're talking about a huge guy with an absolute rocket launcher for an arm. He's athletic. We saw what Hendon Hooker just did. Can the Vols sustain what they just did? I mean, it didn't look particularly fluky last year, right? I mean, given what, how they came together, I mean, I think they're really one of the most interesting teams in the country because of how quickly that turned and how some of the pieces seem like they fit.